And here we are again, one last time for the last part of my ultimate super duper mega Sonic the Hedgehog retrospective. I already covered most every mainline Sonic game in the first part of the series, the collection of Sonic games on the Sega Game Gear, and all the side and handheld games on the third part. In this video I'll cover every last Sonic game that's worth its salt, the spin-offs, offsprings and weird little racing games. Get some snacks, drinks, sit back and enjoy. Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric is a Wii U exclusive reboot of the Sonic franchise. What is there to say about it that hasn't already been said? It's infamously broken and finished in a pretty awful experience overall that almost cast the franchise back into the depths. Instead of being a fast-paced jump run kind of game, it's much more of a slow action platformer that focuses on combat, exploration, repetitive platforming and some very light puzzle solving. You play as Sonic, Tails, Knuckles and Amy, all of which have different abilities that you need to cycle through for specific platforming gimmicks. Usually when you see an object in the color of one of the four characters, you know you'll have to interact with it as them. It's pretty substanceless and targeted at 5-year-olds. The combat is rather mind-numbing too. You do have a few different attacks with each character, but it usually boils down to just grabbing and throwing every enemy into the nearest pit. The story is also whatever as hell. The main villain of the game is the titular Lyric, a generic evil snake robot man from the distant past that got turned to rock by Sonic somehow because of time travel shenanigans and now got reawakened and wants to take over the world or whatever. And he has a grudge against Sonic. Eggman is also here and he's like the one likable thing about this game. He has some funny lines and the boss fight against him is like the one pretty fun 3-minute sequence of the game. Famously this game has all the quality issues under the sun. It's laggy, has jittery gameplay, unloaded areas, easily exploitable glitches and unfinished cutscenes. All in all the gameplay is like a baby's first 3D video game. The story is baby's first epic and the performance is inexcusable. Sonic Boom Shattered Crystal is a 3DS side game to Rise of Lyric. This one I generally liked a bit more than the console game. It's a lot faster and slightly closer to normal 2D Sonic gameplay. There's obviously a ton of changes though. The levels put a lot of focus onto puzzle solving and exploration, since there's lots of collectibles within the levels. Every character has their own abilities again, and another new thing is this electric grappling hook. Running through the levels feels surprisingly fantastic and free-flowing and is rewarding in its own. Ironically though, you're not supposed to do that since you need to collect X many collectibles to continue in the story. So you need to slow down and actually solve some of the light puzzles in the levels, which just feels off in my opinion. There's also some change-ups in the levels, like the worm tunnels that are mobile level auto runners and some races against other characters that aren't anything special. There's no boss fights and there's only 8 normal levels throughout the game. It's ugly as hell if you couldn't tell yet and the story isn't even worth mentioning. I think that wraps it up pretty neatly. Sonic Boom Fire and Ice is a sequel to Shattered Crystal, also released for the Nintendo 3DS. It features mostly the same overall gameplay as the predecessor, but adds the element of fire and ice. You can give the character you're playing an aura of either one that is used for quite a lot of the gameplay and puzzles. It's nothing too substantial but became a pretty natural, if not somewhat forgettable part of the game. It also got rid of the annoying collect so and so many collectibles to advance requirements, so you can play through the game collecting however much you want. It also has way more but quite shorter levels than Shattered Crystal. These levels still feel pretty nice, but it really stood out to me that there aren't any level or even world specific elements or enemies. All 20 levels in the game feature pretty much the exact same platforming, which I don't need to tell you is underwhelming and lazy. At least this game has boss fights, only 4 that are scattered throughout the 6 worlds, and often aren't even at the end of the world but just somewhere in the middle, which is just really weird. At the end of the day, this is easily the best game that came out of Sonic Boom, but I wouldn't exactly call this game good. Sonic Generations for the Nintendo 3DS is certainly a game that also exists. Nobody talks about this one, which is a shame because I think it certainly has a certain level of quality that is often overlooked. It has the same premise as the very popular console version. A time creature shows up and flings Sonic through time and space, so he goes through a bunch of places from his past, and also runs into his past self in the process. Just like the console version, the story doesn't go any deeper than that. You still have Acts 1 and 2 for Classic and Modern Sonic respectively. Classic Sonic still plays as you expect, but Modern Sonic is represented by gameplay that closely resembles the Rush series of games, basically the Boost formula but in 2D. On occasion he has the camera to do a bit more cinematic stuff to give it a bit more of a 3D feel. Regrettably, Generations 3DS also has huge missed potential. The levels chosen to be represented are all but one from the same games represented in the console version. You have Green Hill, Casino Night and Mushroom Hill for Sonic 1, 2 and 3, Emerald Coast and Radical Highway for Adventure 1 and 2, Ocean Palace strangely enough from Sonic Rush and Tropical Resort from Colors. The rival races are the same ones as in the console version, and the boss fights are also from the games already represented in the same game. Only Sonic Rush is a game that's not represented in the console version, and I think so much more could have been done with this train of thought. Imagine if this game would have focused on the handheld Sonic games. One era for the Game Gear, one era for the GBA and one era for the Rush games for example, with rival races against characters like Fang, Emerald and Blaze. In my opinion, that fumble is the sole reason this game deserves this lack of attention. This could have been such a fun anniversary side release to the main game, but instead they chose to do such a weird mix of genres. At least the final boss is better though. Sonic Battle is a GBA fighting game spin-off that canonically takes place between Sonic Advance 2 and Sonic Advance 3, utilizing the same sprite art from that series. The story follows Emerald, a powerful robot known as a Geysoid, created by an ancient civilization that remains largely unexplored. After coming into contact with Sonic and his friends, Emerald begins to learn and grow, essentially discovering the power of friendship. Meanwhile, Dr. Eggman seeks to capture and exploit Emerald for his own evil plans. The story is structured into episodes, each focusing on a different character similar to Sonic Adventure 1, except here they unfold in a strictly chronological order, starting with Sonic discovering Emerald. The narrative is well written and it's always fun to see the supporting cast interact, though at times it can be a bit excessive. Emerald's character development is one of the game's highlights. Watching him evolve from a mute, emotionless machine into a fully developed character is genuinely compelling. Surprisingly, the game also ties heavily into Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, featuring niche characters like Jared Robotnik, Chaos and E102 Gamma. Shadow the Hedgehog is also here, which probably was a bit crazier at the time than it is now. Even various plot points from the Adventure series are occasionally referenced, which adds an interesting layer of depth to the story. Gameplay wise, Sonic Battle is essentially an arena fighter, though roughly half of the experience plays out like a visual novel. Battles take place on these 3D stages, which while not groundbreaking for the GBA, still look and feel impressive. The combat system offers a decent level of complexity with a variety of attacks and strategic options. While the gameplay is enjoyable, the story mode can become repetitive. Much of it involves traveling across a small world map, triggering conversations and then engaging in fights. More frustratingly, the game often forces players to battle the same set of CPU opponents twice in a row, once with 5 lives per character and then again with 10. Difficulty spikes are another major issue. Some fights suddenly become brutally challenging, with CPUs overwhelming you unless you exploit certain gun mechanics. Balancing is also a problem, as some characters and moves are clearly overpowered. Emerald, being a customizable fighter who can learn moves from every playable character, can easily be turned into an unstoppable force. Overall, Sonic Battle is a cool and unique entry, but its story mode drags due to repetitive fights and inconsistent difficulty. Sonic Pinball Party is a GBA Sonic game that is a pinball Sonic party game. Yeah, it's just a pinball game with Sonic themes and Knights themes and some of the Amigos here as well. This is more of a Sega pinball party, honestly, but I don't know, if you like pinball, I guess it's pretty cool. It's not nearly as cool as Sonic Spinball was with some platform. No, it's just pinball. Yeah, it's not even that good of a pinball game. It's just kind of okay. Yeah, the tiny Chow Garden from Sonic Advance is here. That's pretty cool. That elevates the game by a lot. Yeah, the Chow Garden here has a different mini game than in Sonic Advance. That's pretty cool. Apart from that, it's just a pinball game. But nice to see as well. That's pretty cool. Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood is one of the strangest entries in the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. Made by BioWare, you know, the guys behind games like Mass Effect and Dragon Age, a turn-based RPG and the only one like it in the Sonic series. The story begins with Knuckles being kidnapped by a mysterious group called the Marauders, who have also stolen the Chaos Emeralds. Sonic and the gang take it up to themselves to find Knuckles and stop the Marauders from blowing up the planet or something. It's a bit of a semi-sequel to Sonic Battle, as the mysterious civilization, the Nocturnus clan, which built the Geysoids and thus Emerl, are explored here. Apart from the premise that both goes deeper and shallower than I went into, the dialogue is oddly written, with character interactions lacking the charm and energy that is typical of the Sonic series. Sonic and his friends feel like watered-down versions of themselves, and the villains are generic, missing the personality that makes other Sonic antagonists fun. The game is also entirely played with the power of the Nintendo DS, aka the stylus and the touchscreen, which isn't technically bad, but like, it's worth a mention. The attacks you do in the battles are accompanied by also-style microgames that become ridiculously difficult for stronger attacks. The game also looks rough as hell. Granted, it's on the DS, but Jesus Christ, look at it. The music as well. This here is the main title theme. Pretty sick, right? This is the rest of the soundtrack. An ear-piercing MIDI nightmare. It was meant to be the first part of a 2-game series, but due to a mix of legal issues with infamous Sonic comic writer Ken Penders and a lukewarm reception, the sequel never happened. So it ends on a cliffhanger in which Eggman has taken over the world, and because of this little never resolved tidbit and the likewise never resolved lawsuit, this game is one of the very few things pretty officially considered non-canon, and it's just kinda funny. Sonic Riders is the first entry in the modern Sonic Racing series, but unlike Sonic Drift or the Sega All-Stars racing games, this one ditches the cars in favor of high-speed hoverboard racing. It's also a surprisingly complex game requiring mastery of several mechanics, including the wind-based fuel system, drifting, boosting, air pits, tricks, jumps. This isn't a simple pick-up and play experience, but once you do get the hang of it, the gameplay is really fast, fun and rewarding. This game was released during the Sonic Heroes era, so similarly it features 3 racer types: speed, flight and power. Each type can interact with specific stage gimmicks and access unique shortcuts, adding strategic elements to the races. The story mode is ridiculously intense though. Some races have brutal CPU opponents that took me dozens of try speeds. As for the plot itself, it's fine, nothing groundbreaking, but it fits the experimental nature of the time. The game takes place in an unusually futuristic setting for Sonic, following the Babylon Rogues, Jet, Wave and Storm, while trying to uncover the lost Garden of Babylon, while Eggman is also like there and stirs up trouble. Interestingly enough, this is one of the only games in the franchise in which Eggman technically wins at the end. Overall, I really enjoyed Sonic Riders. Certain story races pushed me to the fucking limit though, but I would rather see Sonic carve out its own niche in the racing genre than just settle for another Mario Kart clone. Sonic Riders Zero Gravity is the second entry in the Riders series, and compared to the first game it's been streamlined and simplified in several ways. Many of the intricate mechanics from the original have been removed, such as the fuel gauge and the traditional boosts. Instead, the game revolves around its new gravity-based mechanics. Instead of a standard boost, you now have the gravity dive, which acts more like a nitro burst by summoning a black hole in front of you. There's also the gravity drift, which acts as a sharp 90-degree turn. The overall controls feel smoother and more accessible, though once you get used to the new mechanics, the game becomes a bit too easy since they dialed back the CPU difficulty as well. One of the more interesting changes is the vehicle upgrade system. Collecting rings during the race lets you upgrade your speed, upgrade your gravity gauge, or upgrade your vehicle itself to access type-specific shortcuts. This adds some strategy to the races as you need to plan by which point you should have acquired which upgrade. The plot revolves around gravity controlling devices mysteriously falling from the sky, leading to Sonic, Jet and the rest of the cast encountering these powerful artifacts. The Babylon and Rogues return, and of course Eggman is also here stirring up trouble. Again, he accidentally created a rogue AI network that tries to take over the world or something. While the story isn't particularly deep, it has its moments. By the end you're up against a metal overlord style robot that's summoning a black hole to swallow the planet, which is just really fucking rad. Sonic Rider Zero Gravity refines the Rider's formula, making it smoother and more accessible, but in doing so it also loses some of the depth and challenge that made the original so cool. While the gravity mechanics and upgrade system are cool, the game is a little bit too easy once you get the hang of them. Still, it's pretty fun. I probably prefer to the original because it's just a bit more accessible, considering that the AI isn't so ridiculously difficult, and I just prefer Sonic having his own racing series instead of just making another Mario Kart clone. Team Sonic Racing was the first exclusively Sonic racing game releasing after a long time of Sega-oriented crossover racers. It goes back to a more basic and generic car racing style, not unlike Mario Kart. It's basically a game in the Sonic and Sega All-Stars racing series, but without the Sega All-Stars. On that note, in my opinion, that series isn't exactly a part of the Sonic franchise and more of a Sega crossover that has Sonic in the title because it's the only Sega franchise people know of, so I'm not really including it in this series. Anyway, it plays like any other fun racer on the market. You have all the common items like bananas or green and red shells. You drift and have to reach the first place. The twist of this game is the titular team mechanic. Under any circumstance you are in a team with two other racers. You can give or receive items from your partners and use a slipstream, a trail you and your partners leave behind, that if you drive over it accelerates you above top speed. At the end of the race your points are added up, so it's not only important that you yourself get high on the leaderboard, but your teammates do as well, which can be a bit of a nuisance. Apart from that, the team mechanic is fun enough for what it is and makes the game stand out a bit from other fun racers. The track variety leaves something to be desired though. A lot of the tracks use similar assets and most of them don't have anything special going on or memorable scenery. A lot of them are heavily based on locations from the Sonic series though, which is admittedly I've been criticizing of Mario Kart tracks for a while now. It does have a story mode though, featuring the Tanuki Dodonpa, who hosts a racing tournament that the Sonic casts take part in. They suspect that Dodonpa is in cahoots with Dr. Eggman. Turns out that he's just innocently hosting a racing tournament, and that's the whole story. At the end, Eggman pulls like a sort of ultimate scheme, but it's nothing special. Team Sonic Racing is a neat little fun racer that controls great and is fun like any other, but playing it I couldn't shake the thought of why would I play this above Mario Kart 8? Which is also the reason I much prefer the Sonic Rider series as Sonic's own racing endeavor, to make it stand apart from the Mario Kart series, but oh well. The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog is a visual novel released on April 1st, 2023. As it was released as an April Fool's joke, the game is rather ridiculous. But if you like visual novels, this one's really good in my opinion. The story is set on a luxury train. Amy is celebrating her birthday in reference to Sonic's CD's 30th anniversary and is hosting a murder mystery party. A lot of the usual supporting cast are present and loosely role-playing guests on the train. The party gets started after some peculiar events and Sonic being found as the victim. The great thing is, for an April Fool's joke, this is a surprisingly fully fledged 3 to 4 hour long mystery detective game. You take the role of an OC avatar who is the sole waiter on the train, and pair up with Tails who takes the role of the detective, and start interrogating the cast and what they were doing before and during the murder. You do this by investigating the train compartments with point and click style gameplay. Once you gather enough clues, you interrogate the cast, which is bookended with the minigames that play sort of similar to usual 2D Sonic special stages, which adds pretty fun variety. The best thing about this game is obviously the character interactions. If you love the Sonic supporting cast as much as I do, it's just a joy to see them banter with one another. Especially since the cast was somewhat laid to rest and out of the spotlight for a long time now, so it's cool to have a game again in which they're front and center. The story that unfolds is actually pretty multifaceted and filled with clever plot twists in the end in my opinion. You even partake in a heist somewhere in there. The final act also has some major revelations, like Eggman obviously partaking in this in secret, and Sonic having actually been assassinated, which is just honestly fucking hilarious. The ending screen with Sage and supporting Eggman in his endeavors makes the whole thing worth it as well. I'm personally not the biggest visual novel fan, but as the few that I actually like are series like Professor Layton and Phoenix Wright, this is just the right mark. Ah yes, Sonic Unleashed, what a game you are. The game that introduced the main gameplay style to be the boost formula, but also as a product of its time, innovated the franchise with the then and now controversial Hedgehog. In the story, Eggman harnesses Super Sonic's power to use a giant space stick to piss on the earth or whatever, and unleashes Dark Gaia, the devil god of hell or something. Sonic mutates in the process and now becomes a hulking, powerful, for some reason stretchy version of himself in the moonlight. The game is structured into two parts: the daytime stages in which you play as Sonic in the boost formula, and the nighttime stages in which you play as Sonic the Hedgehog, with hack and slash gameplay. The highlights of the game is certainly the daytime part. The sense of speed and free-flowing 3D gameplay here is unparalleled. I would even go as far as to say that the boost stages here are some of the highlights of the entire franchise, better than almost every boost level since. The diverse and skill-based level design and beautiful settings make each of the 7 main daytime stages absolute roller coasters, as there are many different routes skillful players can achieve. I especially love the dynamic camera that makes so many sections so much more cinematic. They are longer than many levels in later games as well. If you just look at that, I'd consider this game one of the best Sonic games to date, but this is where the Hedgehog comes in. As the Hedgehog, the game becomes slower, action and puzzle platforming oriented. I personally was somewhat worried to finally come to play these sections, but I gotta say, while I understand why the Hedgehog was so hated at the time of release, now with the benefit of being able to choose what Sonic game to play, and being prepared for what awaits me in Unleashed, I find the Hedgehog levels to be okay. They are not exactly what I would want from a Sonic game, and the stages can easily overstay their welcome, as the average Hedgehog level is about 15 minutes, but the gameplay itself is decent enough. There's a bunch of combos one can do, and while I wish he would move maybe like 10% faster in many cases, I shamefully have to say, I am okay with the Hedgehog stages. They don't fit into the franchise as a whole, but I think they contrast the daytime stages within this game quite well and round out the package. There are some things that I got annoyed at, however, mostly the overworlds being a bit clunky to maneuver, and the fact you have to get X amount of collectibles to progress. You get a lot of them quite easily, but I still hit minor roadblocks twice in my playthrough. The music in this game is fantastic though. There are not as many vocalized theme songs here, only the main theme performed by the same guys as the Phineas and Ferb opening, but the background music of especially the daytime stages is always a bop. The finale, there's just one ludicrously long level for Eggman and is an absolute gauntlet, being somewhat of a difficulty spike, about 30 minutes long and switching between Hedge and Hedgehog multiple times, is, while difficult, also a fitting and cool final level. The boss fights, while all of them functional and good for what they are mostly nothing special. The Egg Dragoon, the boss just before the final boss, is a really cool fight though. The final boss, Dark Gaia, didn't really blow me away though. You fight in a couple different ways, with a Stone Colossus, some minor boost style segments and Super Sonic, and even though it was cool, it didn't wow me much. Maybe it's because Dark Gaia himself doesn't have much presence in the story or character, or maybe it's because this is like the 8th Super Sonic final boss I've played. I'm not really sure. It's an alright final boss, I suppose. All in all, I must say, Sonic Unleashed is so much better than I expected. The daytime stages have become some of my absolute highlights of the franchise, and I powered through the Hedgehog stages easier than I anticipated. Most elements of the game work or even excel, and I only have a few minor issues with it. I can't wait to only ever replay the daytime stages on my now completed file and never touch anything else about the game ever again. And that is it. Finally and forever I can say I played through every single Sonic the Hedgehog video game. It's been a blast and a completely unexpected adventure after I just wanted to play Sonic Adventure 2 that one time. And even more unexpected is that I actually stuck with it until the very end, playing even the last forgotten GameCube games and the hour-long filler experiences. The Sonic franchise has always been special to me, watching the cartoons as a kid and playing some of the games here and there. So it's actually rather satisfying to have played through the whole thing from start to finish. It's also the series that finally made me break through and actually start writing scripts for these review videos. I'm the first one to say that my videos are nowhere near a masterclass of writing or editing, but I'm happy with how they turned out and I'm confident this is just the start of a wider endeavor. I'm looking forward to both the next entries in the franchise now that I have nothing else to play anymore, and into the future of this channel. Thank you all for sticking with me, watching my videos, especially this one. I really hope you enjoyed it and I hope to catch you again in my next 10-month long hyper-specific autistic obsession. Thank you for watching and until next time.